What's up? It's Tom. Thanks for being here. Let's tackle a handful of Twins topics as we put spring training to bed. Twins played their final spring training game of the year. Next one's for real on Thursday, so excited for that coming up. But handful of handful of topics to tackle first. Randy Dobnak. If I wasn't laughing at myself already, this would put a smile on my face on its own. Randy Dobnak is expected to be on the opening day roster. I put that with a question mark, so I want to talk about that real quick. But first on Dobnak, it's hilarious that I'm sharing this Aaron Gleeman post showing that Randy Dobnak was one of the first round of cuts from spring training this year. And there's no rules against, if you've sent a guy out of your major league clubhouse and over to minor league camp, you can always bring him back. There's no rules against it. So cuts are kind of maybe overly dramatic, but that's really the main reason why Dobnak wasn't on my radar at all, and doing these roster projections, because he had been cut and he was an early cut. So I didn't think there was really an avenue for him to come back. But if you think about it, it's kind of the perfect storm for him to reemerge here. As Matthew Leach, what I'm showing here, noting that Dobnak was in the clubhouse. The Twins, again, earlier today, the Twins won't formally announce till the final 26 until Thursday. So, it's appearing as though Randy Dobnak is the final piece. I'm sure he's going to be traveling with the Twins. As of now, that's the assumption of everybody in-house at the moment. But as we've talked about recently, there's a lot of movement going on across the league. There's a lot of guys who have opt-outs who've been notified, hey, you're not going to make the team. Are you going to come play with our AAA team, or are you going to opt out? And they're opting out and becoming free agents looking for new opportunities. As today has gone on farther, I think it's become more likely that Dobnak is going to make it and the Twins aren't going to make another move. But it's always possible that one of these guys that's kind of floating around, who's recently a free agent, or maybe even a trade happens at some point. Crazier things have happened. So Dobnak, the assumed last piece of the bullpen, but it's always possible. That's a shaky spot when you're the 26th man. So as of right now, it certainly looks like it'll be Dobnak, but I'm sure Derek Falvey and Jeremy Zoll in the front office will be making lots of calls, as they always are, checking in on lots of other things. So pretty excited for Randy. I mean, a great guy. We obviously got to know him his rookie year when he came up and eventually started a playoff game at Yankee Stadium, but he's also, sticking around in the org. One of the most fan-friendly players at CHS Field, always just a really, always signing, always interacting with fans, just a really fan-friendly dude and a good guy. And he's get some nasty movement, Randy Dobnak. He pitched well. He didn't pitch a ton for the Twins this spring, but he pitched well this spring. So yeah, it's interesting. And again, the perfect storm here. I call that out because Dobnak has a salary, but what that does is that makes it less likely that when you removed Randy Dobnak from the active roster and he goes on waivers, that another team is going to claim him. So yeah, he's kind of a nice guy to put on in this situation where Brock Stewart is not expected to be out very long. He has a hamstring injury, not going to miss a ton of time. So whoever is getting this last roster spot in the bullpen is really just keeping it warm for Brock Stewart. And Dobnak's kind of a handy guy to have in that situation. So moving on to item number 2, lots to talk about Twins ownership and sale updates. Some great reporting at The Athletic from Dan Hayes and company. This saying that the Pohlads are seeking at least $1.7 billion for the Twins, which is over what I would have projected them to get. Not that I'm some kind of expert on these things. And noting that they have $425 million in debt on the books. So, we kind of dove into this stuff in the off season because it was a cold winter. There wasn't much else to talk about on the last day of spring training when we have actual baseball around the corner. And I just have a lot more other things that I want to look at and think about. I haven't delved into this too far yet, but this sounds bad. But I want to hear from you guys. Has anybody else looked really far into this story, this update in the storyline, or kind of have some more knowledge to bring to the table, some more financial knowledge to bring to the table? Feel free to share that. But in any update that's regarding the Twin sale, that's not like, hey, this person has emerged as a front runner, I'm going to take as not great news. But again, I am so ready to I'm ready for this to be over and for them to sell, but I'm even more ready to turn the page on this and focus on baseball and just talk about baseball, to be completely honest. And that's where we're at with the TV situation as well. But I think that's resolving itself. I've been trying to stress to people with cable and satellite packages, like, to expect to get the Twins. I think most of you are going to get the Twins, and that's happening. I think it was Paul Bunyan Cable up near the border was the first company to seal their deal with Twins TV, and there have been some more smaller ones that have come. I don't believe any of the big ones have officially come to an agreement with the Twins yet. And, that doesn't feel good, being this close to opening day. From everything I'm hearing and from everything everybody else expects, and when you look at how other teams who've been in this similar situation to the Twins broadcast have done it, I think it's pretty safe to assume that they're going to be on most of the packages. Keep an eye out, keep an ear to the ground. But this was interesting, I thought. Judd Zulgad relaying information from a Darren Wolfson episode that the Twins are going to have a number of Tuesday games over the air, so anybody can watch on TV. That's awesome. First time Judd is saying that's the first time since 2010, he believes. On the business side, this thing where the Twins don't have a TV deal, they're broadcasting their own games, is going to hurt, the team. But I think this is going to be a huge plus to the culture and fandom of Twins baseball, and I'm really excited. And again, hopefully they work out deals with all, Xfinity, Comcast, whatever they're calling themselves these days, and all the other big carriers. On to topic number 4, Bobby Nightingale Jr. of the Star Tribune. Really been awesome. He's been on the minor league side a bunch and has been sharing a lot of little tidbits and video that we don't get a lot of usually from spring training. Notes that Luke Keaschall, I highlighted that down below, wasn't DHing. Was not DHing. He played second base. That's huge. Luke Keaschall, who had off-season, in-season, really, Tommy John surgery, shut down his year last year a little bit early to get Tommy John so he could recover. And this was sort of the timeline they were aiming for. And it's from the sound of it, everything is kind of going exactly as they had hoped and planned. So the fact that Keaschall is playing second base, is getting in and doing that some before spring training ends is a great sign. Speaking of spring, you mentioned spring training, games are done. That means Sire of Fort Myers season. This year, I've been putting it all on Twins Daily in articles. It's not been videos this year. If you missed them, I haven't been hitting it too hard because I've been really working on a lot of stuff on the channel, on the zines. I actually have a third We're Gonna Win project coming out soon. Really hitting in that one hard too. So I've been having a lot of fun with other things. Last year, I had a blast with making videos on the Sire of Fort Myers and really pushed myself beyond a lot of the usual things I've done and into editing and getting visuals and thinking of, making things super dramatic. And just had a lot of fun with that last year. And it just I needed to focus on other stuff this year, and it just wasn't meant to be. Next year might be the complete opposite. But if you are wondering who the 2025 Sire of Fort Myers is, I have filed that article with Twins Daily, so it should be posted to the site before too much longer, I imagine. Be on the lookout for that. Thank you so much, though, for being here and checking this one out. I really appreciate you. We'll talk again soon.